Creepshow Season 2 is here and it is better than ever. Let's talk about it. Hey there guys, and welcome back to Dino Review. So last night I got to sit down and watch Season 2 of Creepshow. So the first episode is currently out, and honestly I had a blast with it. There are so many callbacks, kind of old school horror movies. There's a lot of great characters and some really surprising cameos. The first story in particular follows a kid whose mother is dying, and he kind of finds comfort in these monsters he surrounds himself with. Now, as well as that, he does kind of share in this world with his mother, and they have these kind of monster movie nights every single day. Now, what I liked about this one is just a callback to old school monster movies. It did remind me a lot of just myself growing up with horror movies, so I do think if you're a fan of horror, if you grew up loving horror, you'll definitely enjoy the first story. The first story definitely has a lot of heart to it. It has a lot of innocence, and honestly I was immediately sucked into the story because of how relatable the characters were. Now, as well as that, I do love the callbacks to monster movies and just stuff like EC Comics. A lot of that kind of pops up on screen. As well as that, the directing was quite good in that first story. I thought the colours on screen were really vibrant. It actually just popped off the screen at you. After a while, the young boy has to go live with his uncle and aunt, and there is this kind of struggle in the household where his uncle wants him to man up, to essentially be what he perceives as a man. He wants him to stop reading these comic books, he wants him to stop watching horror movies, and a big kind of struggle ensues, and that's where the bulk of the story comes from. These monsters begin to come alive and just kind of help out the boy in ways he didn't think about. The movie is also set in the 70s, and I enjoy kind of seeing obviously the monsters of that time. They do kind of discuss these different horror movies that are going on at the time, people like Christopher Lee. So again, if you're a fan of horror movies, that is just something you will really enjoy. The first story in this one has a lot of heart, it has a lot of humour to it, but mainly it is just a very relatable story for horror fans to get into. There's a few, surprising twists in here, but nothing like the second story. Now, whereas the first story is almost like a palate cleanser just to get you into the mood for Creepshow, the second story takes that and turns it up to 100. I absolutely love everything about the second story, and there are so many parts of it I just didn't see coming. We follow a television station as they record many different TV shows around a studio lot, and complications really start arising around time slots. Now, I enjoy this because we actually spend time with the characters before the mayhem ensued, and chaos definitely does happen, but I enjoyed that we spent a bit of time first with the different characters in this one, because there's a lot of TV shows going on, so there's actually quite a lot of characters to juggle. Now, before we know it, Ted Raimi shows up with the Book of the Dead from the Evil Dead franchise. When that appeared on screen, I absolutely was floored because I just didn't see it coming. The story quickly takes a very chaotic turn where there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of gore, and a lot of campy goodness that we know from the Evil Dead franchise. The practical effects and the creature design are all perfect in that second story, and although we just got an Evil Dead series only a couple of years ago, it still felt fresh and just very surprising. I absolutely loved everything about that story. The kills are also pulled off really well, as is the story. What I like about this is the story, it is very simple and small, but it just fits with what Creepshow is all about. As well as that, the story is not very scary. There's not a lot of jump scares. This does remind me a little bit more of Goosebumps rather than things like Creepshow or Tales from the Crypt, but I don't mind that too much. I am still interested to see what kids today would think of this version of Creepshow, especially kids who are really into horror movies. As the story goes on, we see mayhem pretty much descend all over this television station, and the characters, as I said, are just fun characters that we get to follow through this whole ordeal. Honestly, although this was only about 20 minutes long, I could have watched a feature-length version of this. It felt at times like an Evil Dead movie while also still being a Creepshow story. The second story plays a lot more on horror and comedy over the first story's heart and innocence, but both of them blend really well together. Honestly, I had a blast with the first episode. It does rely quite a bit on nostalgia, and I will say guys, I don't really want Creepshow to constantly bring in these horror franchises. It was definitely fun to see the Evil Dead. It was a great twist and a great surprise, but I am excited just to see more original stories. But guys, if you have watched the first episode of Creepshow, if you're a fan of it, let me know what you enjoyed about the episode. Remember guys, we will be doing an episode every single week, so this will be released every Thursday. So if you want to see more videos like this one, guys, remember you can of course subscribe to the channel. You can pop on your notification bell so you get notified about new videos coming out. And if you want to watch more videos, you can do that right now, and I will see you in the next one.